Welcome back. Today, we're diving into an absolutely fascinating explainer of some profound source material that takes a really hard look at human aging, our deep-seated fear of vulnerability, and a massive theological paradigm shift. It totally challenges everything society tells us about being strong. We're going to reframe our reliance on others, not as some kind of failure, but as a deeply spiritual, entirely natural state of being.
Okay, let's dive into this. If you just look around today, our society is absolutely obsessed with total independence, right? We celebrate the self-made individual, the person who supposedly doesn't need anyone's help. We spend our youth trying so hard to achieve independence and then our adulthood terrified of losing it. But the material we are looking at today asks us to pause and rethink this whole shebang. So, is depending on others actually a sign of weakness?
Section 1. The reality of aging.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that the text grounds us in something literally none of us can escape: the reality of aging. It's an inevitable physical and psychological journey we all have to face. But how we face it? Well, that changes everything. Just consider these two 90-year-old women. On one hand, you have a woman in Korea who hits the gym, rides the stationary bike, and cares for her great-grandchild every single day. On the other hand, you have a woman in the US who uses a walker after her husband's passing, but she stays highly active volunteering and making quilts at her church. Physically, their capabilities are vastly different, but mentally, they share the exact same mindset and absolute, incredibly healthy acceptance of their aging.
And that brings us to the core thesis here. Accepting aging fundamentally means accepting dependence. The true hurdle of getting older isn't really just the wrinkles, the loss of mobility, or the fatigue. The real hurdle? It's overcoming the deep, ingrained shame we associate with needing someone else's help. It's that massive ego hit of waking up and realizing, actually, scratch that, realizing you just aren't entirely in charge of your own survival anymore.
Section 2. Redefining human dependence.
We often think successful adulthood means reaching this magic point where you never need anyone. But honestly, that's a total illusion. Think about a teenager screaming, "I'm not a child, stop interfering," right? They are desperately fighting for that middle phase, adulthood, where they only rely on themselves. But this independent phase is really just a temporary middle chapter. It's sandwiched right between two completely natural periods of total dependence: infancy and old age. The source material points out that folks who stubbornly cling to that illusion of permanent independence often find their later years kind of bitter, simply because they've never practiced the humility of receiving help.
Section 3. A mother's embrace.
The original source material shifts beautifully here from the physical realities of aging to our deepest emotional needs, using this incredibly vivid metaphor. It notes that a newborn baby cannot eat, move, or even burp on its own. It relies entirely on a mother's embrace. Really think about that. We don't look at a baby and call its reliance a shameful weakness, do we? No way. We call it growth. A mother's embrace is a place where you're accepted without having to ask, pay, or prove your worth. You are kept safe simply because you are held.
Section 4. The meaning of Nahum.
So, this brings us to the theological core of the text, examining an ancient passage from Isaiah that completely flips how the divine is viewed. We usually picture God as, an all-powerful king or this strong, stoic father. But Isaiah 66:13 introduces a massive paradigm shift. As a mother comforts her child, so will I comfort you. Here, the divine isn't depicted from some distant throne of authority, but through a radically vulnerable, deeply empathetic, motherly metaphor. It's a real game changer.
And what exactly happens in that embrace? Well, we encounter an ancient Hebrew word, shalom. While we usually translate it just as peace, the context here describes it as peace like a river. It's overflowing, it's constant. And the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that this shalom isn't earned by hard work, frantic rushing around, or trying to prove your value. It flows naturally into you when you just simply surrender to being held. And this brilliantly illustrates another ancient Hebrew concept, nacham. Translated as comfort, nacham isn't just a distant, sympathetic pat on the back from above. It literally means the act of bending down to someone's exact eye level to intimately share in their pain. It is getting right down there, entering directly into someone else's suffering to stand alongside them.
Now, this concept of Nahum is actually the bedrock of the Christian theological concept of the incarnation. God didn't just offer comfort from afar. The source text argues the divine practically executed Nahum by stepping directly into the human experience. Just notice this progression. First, arriving as a completely helpless infant. Second, enduring the raw realities of physical hunger and deep fatigue. And finally, experiencing ultimate betrayal, isolation, and pain. It's presented as the ultimate picture of a God who bends down to eye level to share in our vulnerability.
Section 5. Becoming a safe community.
So, the crucial point is, how does this philosophy of dependence actually transform a local community today? Well, the speaker directly challenges their congregation to literally embody this naham. They envision a community totally marked by mutual dependence. We're talking the young leaning on the old for wisdom, the old leaning on the young for physical help, and settled immigrants warmly welcoming overwhelmed newcomers. It's all about creating a safe harbor where people are completely unashamed to say, "I need help," because they know for sure they'll be met with an embrace, not judgment.
And when a community actually achieves this, the results are completely transformative. We see one last vivid metaphor from Isaiah here. Your bones shall flourish like green grass. Now, bones are the deepest, most hidden part of our structure, right? The idea is that accepting our vulnerability, just letting go of that exhausting need to constantly prove our independence, and receiving true comfort, it doesn't just fix surface-level problems. It revitalizes us from our absolute deepest core, our very bones, radiating life and strength outward.
Which leaves us with this final, truly profound thought to close out our explainer today. If depending on others isn't actually a weakness, but a fundamental part of the human experience, and if true comfort is found in bending down to someone else's eye level, then whose embrace will you become today? Vulnerability isn't a liability, you guys. It's the very bridge that connects us to true community. Take that question with you, and I'll catch you next time.